Welcome back to another video tutorial. This video tutorial is specifically for the module Drawing 2 for the National Diploma Civil Engineering as presented by NMMU Port Elizabeth, South Africa. So this tutorial is going to cover setting up dimension styles and text styles in order for us to annotate our drawings correctly or as per the requirements of this particular module. Please, we must make sure that we all use the same standards. And in order to facilitate that, we are going to go ahead now and format our text and dimension styles up front so that we don't have to do it later when we work on the drawing or get confused later on in the drawing process. So how we're going to go about doing that, believe it or not, is quite straightforward. We need to find out where we can edit our plot styles. Not our plot styles, what am I even saying? Our dimension styles. So one place you could look is on the Format button. Let's hope it works. Format, dimension style. So this is a button that we can push. If we select that, then we come out at this dimension style manager, which is a success. Let's imagine that there could be another way. How would we find that? If we go to the annotation group, I can look for the little paintbrush, dimension style, creates or modifies dimension styles, and select that. Same screen. So let's work from here. Well, let's make the assumption that we want to create a new dimension style. So let's go ahead and say new. This dialog box comes up. A new style name. Let's call it, what would we like to call it? Let's call it new dim style. And we're going to start with ISO 25, which was a pre-configured dimension style. Do we want to have it annotated or not? Let's say yes. Let's see how that goes. I'm going to say continue. Alright, so the interface comes up for us to make certain settings. Now let's just slow it down a little bit and look at what is available for us to change. Well, I have lines, symbols and arrows, text, fit, primary unit, alternate units, and tolerances. We're going to concentrate on everything from lines up to fit in this video tutorial. So let's go ahead and start with lines. Clicking on lines. The first thing we're going to do is change the line color for the purposes of this module to be, believe it or not, color 42. Now we don't see a 42 here, and is 42 even a color? Yes, it is a color. Let's go ahead and select color, and we're going to type in the color block 42. Say OK. Notice that it is now color 42. Now we need to look at some of these dimensions here. Unfortunately on my notes they aren't all in exactly the same place, so you might be able to page them backwards and forwards. Let's make sure that all these things are correct. Okay, line type by block, check. Baseline spacing, let's see if I can find a new dimension for that. So the baseline spacing must be equal to 0. So that's a change we're going to make. Are we going to suppress anything? No. Extension lines, color will be color 42 to match our main text. So let's change that to color 42. How's that look? That looks great. Notice in this little window it shows you the changes that you made. Those are looking good so far. Line type, extension line, we'll deal with that a bit later. By block, line weight by block. Suppress, not at this stage. Oh wait, offset from origin. Oh, there we go, offset from origin. We're going to change that to 3. Take note. Notice how these things are going to change now. Extend beyond dimension line 1 space. So you can see this offset from origin affects the distance that the extension line moves away from the object that we're busy dimensioning. So that's very important. Is that all we need to do there? I think it is. Let's now move ahead to symbols and arrows. So the first thing that we're going to do here for our convention style, and you can always go back and change it if you prefer, but for the test environment, just look at what's required. So our standard is not going to be arrowheads closed fill, but arrowheads are going to be oblique. So notice that they've now changed to oblique. Leader is going to be closed fill. Arrow size we're going to make 2 mm for now. Center marks for circles, we're going to go with none at this point. Dimension break, is that something we're going to worry about? Not at this stage. Let's see what else we need to change here. Preceding dimension text, yes, that's fine. Jog angle 45 is great. Arc length symbol, we're not really going to worry about that for now. Break size, as I mentioned. Text height 1.5, not something we're going to worry about at this stage. Alright, so let's move on to text. Important that text style is going to be a standard text style, but we want to make sure that we are using the ISO CP font. So I'm going to push on the ellipse button to pull up the different interfaces here. So I'm going to start here not using Arial, but I'm going to choose ISO CP. I can type in ISO quickly, and I'm going to go to ISO CP.shx. Size, we're going to choose 2.5 as our size for that. I'm going to choose that as current. Take note, this is an example of what the text looks like. So I'm going to choose that as current. Yes, I want to save my changes, and I'm now able to close this window. Color is going to be color yellow. Please, we always use yellow for general text, and you can see that looks a specific way. The reason we're making these color changes is because when we assign our default plot style, these colors will be certain thicknesses, and that's very important. Full color, we want no full color. Notice text height is 2.5. Vertical text placement, there go the dogs again. Vertical text placement above the line, we want it to be centered between the ticks, and we want to read left to right, and we want our text to be aligned with the dimension line, as opposed to being horizontal. We want it aligned. Next issue is this offset from the line. Do we want to do anything with that? Yes, we want to change this to not 0.625, we want to change it to 1. So just these are the changes we're going to make, and we're going to agree that these are the ones we're going to use if we are doing any new drawings. And certainly you will carry this forward from S2 into the S4 design project. So the final thing, I need to look at fit. So fit options, the main things we want to check here is that we don't want to scale for dimension features. We want to just use an overall scale of 1. So that's going to be the basics for this module drawing 2. We can use the best fit, that's correct. When text is not in the default position, place it beside the dimension line, and that's going to be great. Altogether, this is looking pretty good. Primary units, decimals, precision. So this is going to be rounding off to 2 decimals. Let's maybe change that to 3 decimals. That looks great. Space, there's the comma. Units, formats, decimal degrees is great for angular measurements. Precision, let's go ahead and change that to 3 decimals. You know from survey, if we're measuring angles and we're getting decimal degrees, we want 6 decimal places. But for now, we're going to leave it at 3. Scale factor 1. Alright, let's go with OK. So that's a new dim style. Click on it, new dim style, and we're going to say set current. Good, and we can now close that. So let's say we now have produced a drawing. Let me very quickly draw some kind of cube. I'm going to go with green as my pen color. Let's draw roughly a square. Roughly, I said. I'm going to copy that, move that some distance away, and I'm going to draw in sides. While I'm doing this, just get ready, because we're now going to do an exercise whereby we scale this down based on the actual size. I want to make it something that's reasonable. So I now have a cube which has been drawn very quickly. I just want to measure the length of one of these sides. I can see that this side is 331 units. Now remember, when we draw in model space, as in this drawing module drawing 2, if we're doing civil drawings, these are going to be in meters. Unless you very specifically want them to be something else, I recommend we use meters, because if we then move into paper space and we want a scale of 1 in 1,000, we can use a scale factor of 1 xp. Alright, so this was 300 something odd units. I want to make it a little bit smaller, so I'm going to use the scale function. Take note, scale. I'm going to select everything, right click, specify a base point for scaling, and I'm going to now multiply this by scale factor. I want this drawing to become smaller, so if I multiply it by a number greater than 1, it's going to get bigger. If I multiply it by a number smaller than 1, it's going to get smaller. So I'm going to type in a scale factor of 0.01, enter, and you'll see that it's now become much smaller. Let me zoom in on it by using my dynamic roller zoom super sugi yagi button, and I'm now going to measure one of the sides. I can see that is now 3.315 meters long, which is fine. And I'm not sure what the length of that side is, but we can measure it quickly. And we will see that it is 4.6997 meters long, because I'm drawing in meters. Good, so I now have a drawing. I'm reasonably happy with it. Let's say I now want to prepare it for plotting. Let's go through that process again. Layout 1, right click, page setup manager, modify, assign my plot style, assign my plotter, choose my paper size. I'm happy with A4. I'm going to plot the layout, scale 1:1, 1 millimeter equals 1 unit. OK, close. I now have my page configured. I have my viewport, which is on the page. Let me make it a bit bigger. Alright, so you'll notice if I double click inside, the viewport becomes active. If I now roll in on my cube, I can make it a different size. So I'm not sure what the scale is at the moment, but I'm going to go ahead and set a scale of 1:1000. So I'm going to type in the command Z, enter S, enter 1 XP, and I know that's 1:1000. That's quite small. Let me type something different. Let me go Z, enter S, enter 10 XP. You see it gets a little bit bigger. Okay, that looks great. I'm happy with that as it stands at the moment. Change from model to paper space. I'm going to lock my viewport. And I'm now going to apply some dimensions to this particular drawing. Let's just make sure that it is locked. Roll in, roll out, everything's okay. Change back to paper space. If you hear people shouting in the background, that is the story of my life. Nobody in this house seems to talk quietly. Okay, so I'm ready to start dimensioning. Please take note that I'm going to do dimensions in paper space. So that is a methodology which I advise. It just means that if somebody's working in model space, they're not messing up your print layout, and we tend to make sure that, or let me just say that it's easier to control all your dimensions and text heights in paper space. So this is where you're going to print from. It's easy to edit. You don't have to worry about sizes and scaling of text. Everything just looks smart. So the idea is that if you're working in model space, all your layers are on. If you have text of different scales in model space, then it's going to become very, very messy. So we keep our dimensions and text for the paper space environment. I'm going to use my viewport as a border, so I'm going to leave it as it is now, as opposed to some other information I gave you about setting your viewports not to print and creating other viewports with the rectangle function or whatever it is. Don't worry about that for now. Let's go ahead and create some dimensions. So the dimensions are part of the annotation group. You'll notice here that I have a linear dimension. If I click on the arrow, you'll notice that I have linear, line, angular, arc length, various dimensions that I can input. Let me just escape from that. So let's choose the linear dimension option and click on that part, click on that corner, and lift my line up, and you'll see that I have a dimension of 3.242 units. Well, this is going to be measuring 3.242 units in model space because I chose associative dimensions. So this is measuring through into model space, so that is that dimension. Let's go ahead and dimension the other side, and you'll see the length is 3.315. Now let me use the same linear dimension and try to measure this line over here, and notice that it doesn't measure along the slope, it measures the change in height from this corner to this corner, the vertical distance. If I want to measure or dimension this slope, I need to change from linear to aligned, and if I then click on those two, you'll notice that I get the aligned dimension, which is quite nice. So those are the different dimensions, and they look exactly the way that I wanted them to. Let's say I wanted this to have a meter at the end, a symbol for meter. I could double click on this here, and then I could put in, let's hope this works. We want it at the back. That wasn't what I wanted to do either. It's funny how these things go wrong sometimes. Let's click on that. Oh, this is terrible. It was so easy the last time I did it. Let's go to the back. Does it work? Meter? Yes! Success! Great. Close text editor. So then able to enter a meter symbol at the end. I could also, if I wanted to, and I wasn't too worried about the associative aspects, I could replace that by deleting that and typing 4.7 meters. Please make sure that when you are putting in units here that you use the correct convention. Meters is a lowercase m. Kilopascals, if you hypothetically, if you're typing it in as some kind of note, use the right convention. No, I don't want to save that change. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so there I have some dimensions. Now let me insert some text. I have two options when it comes to text. I can choose either multi-line text or single line text. For the purposes of this course, I want you to forget that single line text exists. We're just going to stick with multi-line because it has a lot more options and things we can do with it. It's much more practical. So let's go and select multi-line text. I'm now going to, you'll notice that my cursor is activated. I'm going to now define the boundaries of the text box. Once I've done that, the little text bar comes in, and I can now choose caps because all my notes in my drawing are going to be in caps. And I'm going to call this the cube. Notice, however, that for whatever reason my text is now in green. I want that please to be in yellow. And notice the text height is 2.5, the cube. Let's just carry on and say version 1, or rather version 1. Is that what I wanted? No. Let's do it properly. The cube. Ha! You think you know what you're doing, and then it all suddenly falls apart when you're making a video of it. Cube version 1. So that's now all aligned to the left. I can, of course, center it. I can also underline it or do other various things with it. I can also, I think, let's try and do this. I'm going to try and make the heading slightly larger. Try and make that maybe 5 units. That made it larger. I'm going to also change that portion to red to make it bolder with my plot style that I've selected. Yes, I do want to change that. So the cube, version 1, that's some text. I'm going to move this down to the bottom of my drawing, and I need to obviously add the scale. No, let's not worry about scale now, but you know what to do. You have to type in the scale that you want to use, your title block, however you're going to configure it, north arrows if appropriate, notes, etc, etc, etc. So there I have it. Let's just have a quick check again, a quick recap where we went and checked all our stuff. I'm wondering why my text came out green. Let's have a quick look. Dimension style, new dim style, modify, text, yellow. Okay, fine. I must have done something silly. Okay, close. That then is my drawing environment. Let me see what happens if I plot it now to the PDF plotter. Okay, so plot NMU is for project.ctb. That's a plot style we'll install shortly. Drawing to PDF. Also A4 1:1 layout. Everything looks good. Let's preview. Family's busy making supper in the background if you're wondering what all that banging and clunking is about. So the cube, notice that the different colors have different thicknesses. Same here. This is one thickness on the cube. The dimension lines have a different thickness, and the text again is another thickness. So there I go, the cube, easy done. So those are the not plot settings, listen to me. Those are the dimension style settings that you'd have to make, and text style settings that you'd have to make in order to successfully achieve the outcomes of drawing 2 as part of the National Diploma of Civil Engineering at NMMU in Port Elizabeth. South Africa. If you have any questions, please email me or come speak to me directly, students, please. I am very interested in helping you. Let's make sure that we make a success of this semester's Drawing 2 program. Good, thank you so much for your time. I hope you found the video tutorial to be useful, and we'll chat in class.